In the heart of the city, where neon lights painted the skyline and whispers traveled faster than footsteps, something extraordinary was being prepared. It wasn't just any celebration. This was the kind of night that would live forever in the memory of those who witnessed it. Xiao Zhan's birthday was only hours away, but the atmosphere carried the weight of something larger than life, as if the entire world was holding its breath for him. Behind closed doors, an auditorium stood cloaked in darkness, its stage still bare, its lights cold, but beneath the silence was magic waiting to erupt. Staff members moved like shadows, careful and deliberate, guarding their preparations as though every detail carried the fate of a kingdom. Every rose petal, every candle, every beam of light had been arranged not just for beauty but to tell the story of a man who had given his heart to the world. The first seconds of this night carried a hook none could escape. Fans across the globe had been invited into something never attempted before. This wasn't going to be just a birthday. It was going to be a communion, a moment that blurred the line between Xiao Zhan the star and Xiao Zhan the man. Whispers among fans online hinted at surprises, but no one could imagine what was about to unfold. Backstage, Xiao Zhan himself wasn't yet aware of the full extent of what was coming. He sat quietly in his dressing room, a book in his hands though his eyes barely skimmed the words. His reflection in the mirror told him truths he didn't often say aloud. He was grateful, overwhelmed, nervous. Birthdays were supposed to be simple things, cakes, candles, friends, but in his world, nothing was simple. Every year felt heavier, as if the spotlight brought not just love but expectations he could never quite repay. He closed the book and leaned back, listening. Outside the door he could hear muffled movement, the rolling of wheels, the click of shoes, laughter quickly swallowed when someone realized he might be within earshot. He smiled faintly. They were hiding something, he knew. His fans, his team, maybe even the people closest to him. There was a plan unfolding, one designed to sweep him off his feet. What he didn't know was how deep the plan ran, how far the strings of this night had been woven into his past, his present, and his future. Meanwhile, far beyond the auditorium, millions of fans around the world were wide awake despite the lateness of the hour. Social media was a wildfire, hashtags climbing at terrifying speed. Cities lit up in his honor, billboards in New York, light shows in Seoul, trains in Tokyo wrapped in his image, drones spelling his name across the sky in Dubai. In Nigeria, in France, in Brazil, in tiny towns where people whispered his name as if it were a spell, the countdown to midnight had begun. For the first time in history, his fans weren't just sending gifts or posting messages. They had conspired to give him something he could never buy, something beyond material treasures. They had built him a world of memory, a collection of voices, stories, and lives that had been changed because he existed. A digital mosaic was waiting backstage, hidden behind the velvet curtains. It was a tapestry stitched from millions of fan submissions, a living archive of love. As the clock inched closer to midnight, Xiao Zhan's closest friends slipped into the auditorium. They carried with them the warmth of family and the quiet determination of guardians. One of them adjusted the final spotlight, another checked the sound system, and yet another made sure the giant velvet curtain hid what was about to be revealed. The air was alive with a heartbeat, the collective pulse of anticipation. And then the lights went out. The world seemed to shatter into silence. Xiao Zhan stepped out of his dressing room, confused by the sudden darkness. His hand brushed the wall, searching for balance, his heart pounding louder than his footsteps. A voice called to him, gentle, steady, guiding him toward the stage. He didn't recognize the voice, but something about it felt safe, like an invisible hand was leading him forward. He stepped into the auditorium, unaware that thousands of fans were watching through live streams, holding their breath in synchrony. The velvet curtain lifted. And there it was. The stage exploded into a sea of light. A giant screen glowed with 1,000 faces, his fans from every corner of the globe, their voices woven into a single chorus. They weren't just cheering. They were speaking, one after another, telling him stories, how his smile had carried them through grief, how his courage had taught them to dream, how his music and his characters had been the only light in their darkest nights. Xiao Zhan froze. His throat tightened. He had expected balloons, candles, maybe even fireworks. But this? This was a universe unfolding in front of him, a reminder that his life had rippled far beyond what he could see. His eyes burned with unshed tears as voices overlapped, fans shouting his name, whispering blessings, singing fragments of his songs in languages he didn't even understand. He wasn't just watching. He was living it. And then, as if the night hadn't already stolen his breath, someone stepped onto the stage. A familiar figure, one he hadn't expected to see here tonight. The auditorium gasped, the live stream went wild, the fans screamed in disbelief. Xiao Zhan's eyes widened. The celebration had only just begun. The figure stepped into the glow of the stage lights, and the world seemed to shiver. Gasps rippled through the live stream like waves hitting a shore. Xiao Zhan's breath caught in his chest as recognition sank in. It wasn't just anyone, it was someone who had walked through battles of fame by his side, someone whose presence alone was enough to make fans weep with nostalgia. Wang Yibao. He hadn't announced he would be there. No teasers, no rumors, just silence. And yet, here he was, walking across the stage in quiet defiance of the distance that so many had assumed separated them. The weight of their history seemed to hang in the air, a story written not just in scripts and drama sets but in laughter, late nights, and unspoken loyalty. Xiao Zhan's lips parted, but words refused to come. Yibao gave him the faintest smile, that subtle half-curve that was more powerful than any grand gesture, and for a moment, the auditorium felt like it was holding a secret only the two of them could understand. The fans screamed through their screens, thousands crying, some covering their mouths in disbelief, others typing furiously into comment sections exploding faster than anyone could read. Yibao didn't say anything right away. Instead, he moved to the center of the stage and raised his hand. The sea of lights dimmed, leaving only a soft glow around the two of them. And then, in a voice that was calm but steady, Yibao said, "Tonight isn't just about a birthday. Tonight is about the man who has given so much of himself to the world, even when he thought no one was watching. Xiao Zhan, this is your moment, not as a star, but as you." The words hit Xiao Zhan like a tidal wave. He could feel tears threatening, but he steadied himself, forcing a small laugh as he shook his head. "You didn't tell me you were coming," he whispered, his voice trembling just enough for those close to the stage to catch. "That was the point," Yibao replied simply, and the crowd erupted into cheers that were almost deafening, even though most of them weren't even physically there. The screen behind them shifted again, the mosaic of fan faces giving way to something even more breathtaking, a journey through Xiao Zhan's life, stitched together from footage fans had collected, moments from childhood photos, debut clips, and milestones that told the story of a boy who had dared to dream and a man who had fought to keep that dream alive. As the images played, Xiao Zhan stood frozen in awe. He saw his younger self, nervous, awkward, standing in the background of early projects, uncertain if he belonged. He saw the heartbreaks, the moments of silence when the world turned its back on him, and then he saw the light, fans cheering louder than the storms, hands reaching for him when he thought he was alone. And there, woven into the tapestry, were voices of people who mattered most. His family's blessing. His childhood friends recalling stories no one else could know. Crew members who had worked beside him in secret, now stepping forward to reveal how much he had meant to them. And then the music began. The first notes were soft, like footsteps in snow, but the moment Xiao Zhan heard the melody, he froze. It was a song he had never released, a melody he had once scribbled in the margins of a notebook, humming quietly in a rehearsal room years ago. He had never expected anyone to remember it. Yet now it was alive, transformed into a full orchestral arrangement, played live by musicians hidden in the shadows of the stage. Xiao Zhan's knees nearly buckled. He covered his mouth with his hand, his shoulders trembling as he tried to hold himself together. Yibao stepped closer, steadying him with a hand on his shoulder, silent but strong, a reminder that he didn't have to carry it alone. The auditorium, the live stream, the world, everyone was crying now. The music swelled, and the screen lit up with a new image, a globe spinning slowly, stars wrapping around it. And then, one by one, lights appeared on the globe. Tiny points marking every country, every city, every corner of the world where someone had whispered, "Happy birthday, Xiao Zhan!" The lights multiplied until the entire earth glowed like a lantern, shimmering under his name. And that was when the tears finally spilled down his cheeks. He didn't even try to hide them. He didn't need to. This wasn't a stage performance, wasn't a mask he had to hold in place. This was love, raw and unfiltered, surrounding him like a shield. The fans weren't just celebrating his birthday. They were reminding him of something greater, that his existence had mattered, that his light had touched them in ways he would never fully understand. When the music ended, silence filled the room, but it wasn't empty silence. It was the kind of silence that holds the echoes of hearts beating together. Xiao Zhan wiped his tears, laughing softly at himself, embarrassed and overwhelmed. "I don't know what to say," he whispered, voice breaking. I don't deserve this." The fans roared in protest through their screens. Iba leaned in, his voice just for him, but caught by the microphones anyway. "Yes, you do. More than anyone." Xiao Zhan turned to him, eyes glistening, lips trembling as if he wanted to argue, but he couldn't. The truth of the night was too powerful. He let it wash over him, surrendering to the love that had been waiting all along. The curtain hadn't even dropped yet. The biggest surprise was still waiting. The stage lights dimmed once more, but this time not into silence, into suspense. Xiao Zhan blinked, his lashes still wet, trying to steady himself as the sudden shift cloaked the auditorium. A low hum filled the room, a vibration that seemed to echo not just through the stage but through his chest. The giant screen behind him flickered to life again, but this time it wasn't clips or voices. It was stars. A dark, endless night sky glittering with constellations. One by one, the stars began to form shapes, drawn not by science, but by art. And then Xiao Zhan saw it. It was his name. Formed out of constellations. But it wasn't just a name, it was surrounded by outlines of the characters he had played, each constellation bending to reveal Wei Wuxian's flute, Tang Stan's determined gaze, Guiye's military silhouette. Every role he had brought to life, every world he had carried on his shoulders, now carved into the heavens as if the universe itself had written his story. Xiao Zhan staggered back, clutching his chest as though the sight itself was too heavy to bear. His heart raced, overwhelmed by the realization that this wasn't just a celebration, it was immortality. The fans had immortalized him in stars, a night sky that would forever be theirs to remember. The music swelled again, soft and angelic this time, a choir hidden behind the curtains lifting their voices in harmony. But before Xiao Zhan could even recover, the stage floor shifted. A platform rose slowly, carrying with it something unbelievable, a massive, handcrafted birthday cake unlike anything he had ever seen. It wasn't flashy in the usual way, it was breathtaking in its detail. Every layer told a story. The first was painted like the streets of his hometown, lanterns glowing in miniature. The second held the colors of his earliest stage performances, the costumes delicately replicated. The third was adorned with thousands of tiny lights, representing his fans around the world. And at the very top sat a delicate porcelain figure, Xiao Zhan himself, smiling, holding a single candle. The audience, the live stream, the entire globe watching went silent for a heartbeat. And then the cheers burst like fireworks. Xiao Zhan couldn't move. His hands trembled, his lips parted in disbelief. He had received gifts before, extravagant ones, but this was a story told in sugar and light, a monument of love. His legs gave out for a moment, and he sank to his knees, tears falling freely. Ibo knelt beside him, steadying him with quiet strength. The staff, watching from the shadows, wiped at their own eyes. Even the crew knew they had just created a moment that would outlive all of them. The lights dimmed again, this time into a golden glow. A voice rang out, not Ibo's, not the fans, not anyone Xiao Zhan expected. It was his mother's. From the speakers, her words filled the air. "My son, do you know how proud we are of you?" From the little boy who used to hum songs in the courtyard to the man standing before the world, You've carried yourself with grace, even when the world was unkind. Tonight, let go of your burdens. Tonight, just be happy. You deserve it. Xiao Zhan broke completely. His shoulders shook, sobs racking him as he covered his face. He hadn't expected this, hadn't thought his family would be part of the spectacle. To hear his mother's voice, her blessing woven into the celebration, it was more than he could handle. The audience, though invisible, seemed to cry with him. Across oceans, fans clutched their screens, whispering, we're here," as if their words could reach through the glass. And then came the final touch. From the ceiling, tiny lights descended, hundreds of lanterns, glowing softly, floating downward until they hovered above the stage. Each lantern carried a message, written in delicate calligraphy, chosen from thousands of fan submissions. Some said, "Thank you." Some said, "We love you." Some simply carried his name. Together, they filled the auditorium with a constellation of love so close he could touch it. Xiao Zhan rose slowly, his hand reaching out, fingertips brushing one of the lanterns. It glowed brighter at his touch, as if alive. He closed his eyes, whispering a wish so soft that only he would ever know it. When he opened them, Iba was standing beside him, holding out a microphone. Xiao Zhan hesitated, his throat tight, his voice almost gone. But he took it. The fans held their breath, millions of screens going silent as the world leaned in to hear. "Thank you," Xiao Zhan said, his voice trembling but firm. "For every moment, every light, every word. I never thought my life would mean so much to so many people. I can only promise this: I will keep giving, as long as I can, as long as I live. Because you've given me more than I could ever repay. This birthday, it belongs to all of us." The world erupted. Fans screamed, cried, shouted his name. The chat sections of live streams overflowed with hearts, tears, prayers, and joy. But just when everyone thought it was over, the stage lights shifted one final time. The floor beneath Xiao Zhan illuminated, forming a path of light that stretched toward the back of the stage. A curtain parted, revealing yet another surprise, a secret room, glowing with golden warmth. Inside, thousands of handwritten letters from fans had been arranged into an art installation, spiraling upward like wings. It wasn't the end of the birthday. It was the beginning of something bigger.